Thank you very much, Ali.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, both the Ministers, for being here today. I think it's great there's a dedicated committee and people so dedicated to making things happen. And particularly, Minister Rabbit, in relation to, so far, your engagement with disability support services and people with disabilities has been really refreshing. And I know a lot of the providers in my area are very grateful for your engagement so far. Thank you. A lot of the issues I wanted to raise have been raised by Deputy Tully in relation to the payment being, lower than the pandemic unemployment payment. I think it's really highlighted how the shortcomings there, and what Deputy Nasa Horrigan raised in relation to employment. So I won't go too much into those details that they've already been gone into. But Minister O'Gorman, you mentioned the implementation of the rights of people with disability in the last government, and that's great. And I think just as a committee, it's really important to us as well that the ratification of the optional protocol is included in that, because for people with disabilities to actually be able to exercise their rights, they need to be able to, and there's so many different supports and infrastructure as well that need to be in place for that to actually be possible. And I think we all need to be held to account on that. And one way of doing that is to ratify the optional protocol. And I think it's just essential. A rights-based approach with everything is just so important. And Minister Rabbit, you raised the issue around people living in nursing homes and unsuitable congregated settings, and sadly some people passing away as a result of COVID. And I suppose it really highlighted an already existing issue. And we just have to learn from it. And I suppose if we're going to take seriously the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities and hold ourselves to account with that, the need for independent supported living is just paramount to this. And I think, obviously, this committee itself can't just make that happen. We have to liaise so much with the Department of Housing. And I know you mentioned liaising with Minister Donnelly and other ministers, but I think it's so important that housing is, from the outset, consulted with throughout this. So every bill should include independent supported living. I don't know if it varies throughout the country, but in my own constituency, it's just not an option to get independent supported living as a person with disabilities. Sometimes if you're an older person, but even then it's really, really challenging. So I just think it's so important that from the outset we work with the Department of Housing to make sure that this actually happens, because if it doesn't, people can't exercise their rights, and it's their right to live independently. I think it's really, really important. Just briefly in relation to the employment stuff, I think there's organisations that are funded really well through the government, things like employability, and in speaking with them, they would say that, if there was just, kind of long-term dedication of funding, because they are funded every year, but if they knew that it was definitely coming, so they're rolling out programmes that surpass the amount of time they get funding, for example. They're providing a really good service, but they don't feel like enough people who could use the service are aware of them. So I think an awareness campaign of all the different services that you are funding and providing could make a massive difference to people's lives who don't necessarily know that they're there. And a bit of kind of joint up work in terms of all of the different employabilities around the country that become a really recognised body, instead of working so independently in one area and people not really being aware of the great service that they're providing. And just one thing I really briefly wanted to raise as well was access to speech and language therapy. And I know it's probably a nationwide problem as well, but just speaking, we're talking about all the reps that everybody's getting. And certainly in West Cork, we're, depending on where you are, it could be 2 hours from the city, and people have to travel there for half an hour of speech and language therapy. It's a really short session. It's so essential for these people, so important. A lot of the people that are travelling to them can't be in a confined space for that long, so we're talking about a 2-hour journey with lots of stops along the way for just a 30-minute session. So you're talking about liaising with the Minister for Health, Minister Donnelly. I think it's so important that we just focus on those really essential services, but at the point of need. There could just be one speech and language therapist for 2 days a week in rural areas. That would really, really, really make a difference. And that's the thing that I'm nearly hearing the most from my constituents. So I just want to say that as well. But I suppose my main questions are in relation to the ratification of the optional protocol and a kind of working with the Minister for Housing on independent supported living. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Debbie. Deputy. As regards the optional protocol, so I suppose obviously the ratification of the convention itself is a hugely important step, and we're already seeing, I suppose, the ripple effects of that in the context of creating the network, in the context of the decision support services as well, which is all consequent of that. And the benefit of the optional protocol will to be allow, I suppose, individual persons with a disability to petition the UN Committee, and also to allow the UN Committee actually undertake inquiries into if there is, I suppose, major issues in Ireland as regards failure to meet our requirements under the UN CRPD. So the commitment in the programme for government is to ratify that, and the intention is to allow the first reporting cycle be completed. And as I say, my department are working on drafting the report. That report has to go to the network, and then will be put out as a public document for public commentary and public consultation before being concluded and sent in to the United Nations Committee for their scrutiny, and they'll come back with a response. And at that stage, then we'll be looking to bring forward the ratification of the optional protocol. So it is a clear commitment in the programme for government. I think just maybe as regards the issue of employment, and Minister Abbott has identified that that's a priority for us, and just two things there. One of the things we did identify was that you flagged that there was a lack of knowledge on maybe the part of persons with disabilities as regards what's out there. I think there's also a lack of knowledge maybe on the part of employers as regards the supports that the state can provide, and they are significant, and I think employers may be nervous about taking on what they perceive may be something that will be difficult to manage for them. So I think we need to support employers, and particularly employers in the private sector, and we're bringing forward an awareness campaign, and we'll be backing that up with a website and a new approach to actually get that information out to employers. And I think one of the areas where the department, as regards the comprehensive employment strategy, objective 5.1 of that, I think the department recognises that maybe not enough has been done on that particular point. So we're looking to pilot a programme of supports for a kind of more intensive, dedicated job employment coaches for people with disabilities to assist them in the entire process of CV preparation, interview preparation, and ongoing support. So we're kind of on baby steps with that at the moment, but I think that will be significant if we can get a successful pilot run on that, and then look to mainstream it.
And that builds on the back of the Ability Access Programme that there was funding got under the Department of Social Protection 3 years ago, and the feedback from that has been so positive, that particular programme. I was also going to say, in relation to, you touched on two other things. Myself and Minister O'Gorman over the summer also met with the Ombudsman, Peter Tyndall, who addressed the issue in relation to nursing homes and young people under 65 with disabilities, where their care home had become, or their full-time home had become nursing homes. It's something that we're committed to addressing within the budgetary funding as well, but we're looking at other ways and means of working possibly the Department of Health, with discharge coordinators in hospitals, as to see actually how can we actually integrate people into the community, as opposed to thinking that the nursing home is the first and only option on it. In relation to housing, after this meeting tonight, I'm meeting with Minister O'Brien to get the conversation going in relation to housing, because we're about to embark on building so many houses in the country. It could be a wasted opportunity or missed opportunity if we don't get in a conversation around disability and making it part and parcel of planning. Because what we have come across is, and what the advisors would be telling me, is that when they go to purchase a property or to reconfigure a property, a lot of objections come in, and it's also way cheaper as well to build a property from the foundation up than to go and reconfigure a property afterwards. So we're having our starting conversations with Minister O'Brien this evening on that, so as we can see going forward.
Thank you very much.